Welcome everyone to Marvel Hub. This is DK Dynamite, and today I have a bit of a longer video going over something that I'm sure you guys will be very interested in. But before we jump into it, take all this with a grain of salt, because this could easily be from trolls over on Facebook. But I'm sure you guys heard that there are Facebook pages which are currently private that you can only see by clicking on a very particular link on a desktop that convey upcoming Marvel projects for the MCU. So shout out to Jeremy Conrad for putting this article together on MCUcosmic.com. Apparently comicbook.com noticed that there are some unactivated Facebook pages that look like they're for future Marvel movies, and they have a very similar link or URL to official Marvel movies out there that do have public Facebook pages. So we obviously have one for Black Widow, facebook.com/Black Widow, and there's also one for Marvel's Eternals. So once again, I'll have a link down below in the description to actually check out these URLs, but take it as a grain of salt because this could easily be somebody trolling to build up some hype. But that's not the biggest information we have in the video. There are plenty of other projects that many of us didn't even expect to be for Phase 4 or 5 with the MCU. So first off, we have Facebook.com/Dark Avengers. We then have Facebook.com/Young Avengers Official, and we then have Facebook.com/Marvel's Iron Heart. So once again, they could easily surpass our expectations at San Diego Comic-Con and at the D23 Expo in August. They could easily blow our minds with some massive announcements about upcoming MCU movies that none of us could have ever predicted. They could easily do that. Don't get me wrong on that, but it's also a bit of a coincidence that Robert Downey Jr. just recently said that Marvel's Iron Heart should be adapted into a movie. Then a couple of weeks later, we get this random leak that there are inactive Facebook pages which look like they could be official for movies that we're currently hearing about from different celebrities, different rumors, different sources. So it could just be a massive coincidence. This could all be true, or it's just somebody out there who is trying to hype up the community with some fan theories, in hopes that they kind of deliver some fan service with some of these projects. Also remember, these actual projects, if they are real, may not all be MCU movies. They could be projects for Disney Plus, for Hulu, some other service they could use in the future. That's what it could be. So keep that in mind. Now, besides that, we then have Ninja Spidey over on the Marvel Studios Spoilers Reddit, who also put together a bit of a post talking about some other potential MCU projects that currently have inactive Facebook pages. So once again, as I said before, this could be somebody out there who faked all these URLs, put together these inactive accounts to maybe blend in with the actual real ones to trick us into thinking that they are upcoming projects. We just never know. So as this person said, Ninja Spidey wrote, since the other inactive Facebook pages had been found for characters or teams such as Young Avengers, Dark Avengers, Black Widow, the Eternals, and even Ironheart, I did my own digging and managed to find a bunch of other characters and teams that could be happening in the future also. I will list them below so you can feel free to check for yourselves. Possible future MCU characters / teams. Facebook.com/Fantastic Four Official. Marvel's X-Men. Loki Official, Valkyrie Official, wait for it, Daredevil Official, Luke Cage Official, Moon Knight, Marvel's She-Hulk, Hulk Official, which is presumably for another Hulk solo film, Namor, Deadpool, Spider-Man Official, presumably Spider-Man 3, Sinister Six, Spider-Woman Official, Masters of Evil, Defiance, and Celestials. So before I even jump into whether or not any of these projects would even work, some of these are a little far-fetched and don't really seem realistic for the MCU right now, but could be realistic for years to come. Maybe they just reserved the specific URL for this inactive Facebook page because it is a planned project, even if it doesn't happen anywhere soon. But it makes sense to have Facebook pages for Black Widow and Eternals, films that are currently in production right now. But some of these other ones could honestly be somebody out there who is just in love with some comic books and wants to put out something that sounds like real fan service. So when it comes to Young Avengers, I'm okay with it, but I don't want it to be this cringe fest where it's just nothing but Easter eggs and a bit of fan service from the comics, but it's just there because of the Avengers name and how it will sell tickets. I don't want it to be that kind of film. I really want it to feel like a film that pays off. So if they really start diving into some of the young Avengers across Phase 4 and they kind of set them up and build them up, similar to how the OG Avengers team was built up, then I'll be okay with the Young Avengers movie in the near future, even if it doesn't adapt that Ultron storyline from the cartoon. It doesn't have to do that. It can still do something unique and can still be a good movie, but I just want them to do it right. If you're going to use the Avengers name in an MCU project going forward, it has to mean something. Endgame was this big culmination of a 23 film arc, or 22 film arc, excuse me, and it really was the finale to the OG Avengers team. So to use that team again, to use that name again in a project or any type of movie or TV show, it really has to make sense. And I wouldn't be disappointed if Young Avengers became a Disney Plus exclusive show, because they could probably do something similar to the Runaways over on Hulu with the Young Avengers on a Disney Plus streaming service versus doing a new trilogy of Avengers movies in theaters. They could probably get away with that on Disney Plus or Hulu even, rather than doing an actual movie franchise. So I could see that. When it comes to the Dark Avengers now, this is where things get interesting, because we've had plenty of rumors from reliable people of a Dark Reign storyline being adapted for the MCU in Phase 4 and 5, Norman Osborn being introduced, setting up Sinister Six, setting up the Thunderbolts. That could all lead perfectly into a Dark Avengers movie where maybe New Asgard gets destroyed, Norman Osborn puts together the Thunderbolts, creates a Dark Avengers team, really goes toe-to-toe with whatever the new roster is going to be when it comes to the modern-day Avengers in, 2023, whatever year the MCU is currently in that universe. So definitely not opposed to a Dark Avengers movie, and it's probably the movie that is most likely to happen first, if I had to guess, before anything else like Young Avengers and Celestials or Deviants, stuff like that. Now when it comes to Ironheart, as I said earlier, it could be a bit of a coincidence that Robert Downey Jr. just recently said that Ironheart should be adapted into an actual movie, and the fact that Morgan Stark is only 5 years old just means she can't play Ironheart. And I have no problem with them adapting Ironheart, even though the comic run didn't sell too well, it kind of flopped. I'm okay with them actually writing it in a good way to make a great film. I have no issue with that whatsoever, but I also feel like they've been teasing a bit of Harley Keener's return from Iron Man 3, maybe to be Tony's successor eventually with an actual Iron Man suit, but maybe later down the line, way later, if Morgan Stark ever gets to an age where it's appropriate for her to be a hero, which wouldn't be for a while now, maybe even Phase 6 or 7 if I had to guess, depending on how they want to recast her with a different actress or use her at a certain age. Depending on what they do with that, it wouldn't be a while until Morgan can actually step into a suit, unless they do use Pepper in her rescue armor again at some point, which is also unlikely since she kind of stepped away from the MCU after Endgame, as she officially confirmed. So they could do something with Harley Keener, they could do something with Morgan Stark. It'll take a while for that, but that's always a possibility on top of doing an Ironheart story. But they really want to do it at the right time, when it actually fits in with whatever's going on with the current events of the MCU. So I'm not sure if we're even ready for Ironheart yet. I could assume after an entire phase, which is going to be Phase 4, maybe after that, it'll feel like an Ironheart movie makes sense. But for all we know, they could have already written something really well that fits in with the current events of the MCU. So I'm okay with it. If they write it well, if it's better than the comics, I'm definitely game for it. But when it comes to this other list here, from this Marvel Studios spoilers Reddit post, we have Fantastic Four official. Once again, a lot of talks about Fantastic Four right now. I think if anything, when it comes to the Fox assets that were purchased by Disney, I think Fantastic Four is probably, maybe with Deadpool too, those are probably the most likely characters and teams to actually come into the MCU first before X-Men. I think X-Men's a little bit more complicated with the fact that New Mutants also hasn't released yet, so that probably means they can't use the X-Men at all within the MCU for a while until after that film comes out. But for Fantastic Four, there obviously hasn't been a film since 2015, so they're pretty much open. But when it comes to Deadpool, I'm sure they could slip him in at some point as well without too many issues with the X-Men contract going on right now. So I think if anything, Fantastic Four will happen pretty soon. I'm definitely down for a proper MCU film with Fantastic Four, while when it comes to the X-Men, I really feel like they deserve a proper Disney Plus TV show before they kind of put them into the movies and this bigger universe. They could really set up the X-Men X-Men quite well with maybe a 13-episode season, kind of building up each character, giving some good backstory, revamping the characters, making them really comic accurate, setting all that up so that when they do come out in the movies eventually, it really feels well written, paid off. You feel really established with this new version of the X-Men. It's not going to be anything like the Fox version of X-Men. You can still love that movie and that franchise, but when it comes to the MCU's vision with the X-Men, it's going to be completely different. They'll probably go the route of the Uncanny X-Men. I think when it comes to Fantastic Four as well, they could also dive into Stark Tower, or the original Avengers Tower, being purchased either by Norman Osborn to be Oscorp, or for the Fantastic Four's usage to be the Baxter Tower. So we could see any one of those things happen in the near future. Left that open on purpose. I'm sure they'll be exploring that in Phase 4. So Fantastic Four is inevitable. It'll probably be happening way, way before an X-Men project happens for Marvel. But when it comes to Loki official, obviously they're going to have a Facebook page when the show actually starts shooting and is actually in some post-production for Disney+. That's not surprising at all. We then have Valkyrie official, which I'm not sure exactly what that could be. I'm going to assume that's going to be a Disney Plus show unless they really have faith in doing a Valkyrie solo film of some sort. I really want to believe it's going to be a Disney Plus streaming show, or maybe even one for Hulu. We just don't know. But obviously, it was confirmed yesterday that Taika Waititi is returning to write and direct Thor 4 with the same cast that was in Ragnarok. So Valkyrie's obviously going to be in Thor 4, that's without a doubt. So in terms of what they do with her next, they could easily write Thor 4 in a way where it leads into a Valkyrie solo film, or leads into a Disney Plus show with Valkyrie on her own, or just leading the Asgardians, going on her own adventures, fighting her own villains for all we know. Now we then have official URLs for Daredevil and Luke Cage. So the first thing I'm going to say is Daredevil makes sense. I think Daredevil and Punisher are the most successful Netflix MCU shows. So their return is really inevitable when it comes to MCU films. That's definitely without a doubt. But when it comes to Jessica Jones and how that was written, it was a really nice send-off for the character at the end of season 3. So I don't think we'll be seeing her again, at least anytime soon. But obviously, John Bernthal, who plays the Punisher, is a pretty big name actor. So him appearing in an MCU film as Punisher wouldn't really surprise me. He can handle films. He can handle both TV shows and movies. So his return is definitely going to happen at some point, probably in the form of cameos across different films. Maybe not a solo film just yet. But when it comes to Daredevil, he is essentially the godfather of the Netflix shows that the MCU had. So either they're going to revamp his show and put it on Disney Plus, or even on Hulu, or they can make a Daredevil solo film for the MCU, or they could just throw him into different MCU projects like Spider-Man and other New York-based Marvel projects and stories. They could easily do that, but with the Facebook URL that is Daredevil, I think it's probably going to be a revamp of his TV show, since that was obviously very successful with the team they had writing it. So I'm really positive they're going to bring him back within the next 2 years or so. Obviously, Kevin Feige confirmed it was about a 2-year wait after the shows were canceled when they can actually use these characters again in MCU projects as they please. But when it comes to Luke Cage, this is the one that makes me feel like this is all somebody trolling and really making these URLs themselves, because Luke Cage wasn't that successful on Netflix. It was obviously canceled way before Daredevil was, so I almost feel like the reception of the show doesn't really justify another project with Luke Cage in him, unless they do a solo film or unless they revamp his show completely for Disney Plus or Hulu. Then I don't really see another Luke Cage project happening. I definitely see him having a cameo in maybe Daredevil or other New York-based storylines within the MCU. That's without a doubt as well. But when it comes to Moon Knight, there are obviously rumors many years ago that James Gunn had pitched a Moon Knight movie to Marvel themselves, which they then, I believe, approved, but didn't really greenlight for Phase 3 or 4. So I'm assuming they're like, okay, we'll let you do it, but just not right now. Finish Guardians, then we'll talk about that. Because essentially, they want James Gunn to almost be the godfather of the cosmic side of the MCU, being a producer for many cosmic-based films. And after Guardians 3, I'm sure he's going to stick around with Marvel for a while, producing different movies, but maybe even directing a new franchise for Marvel as well. So Moon Knight could easily be an opportunity for that. Obviously, he's a big fan of Marvel, so he'd be the right guy for that kind of job. But when it comes to to Marvel's She-Hulk and Hulk Official, that's all possible. I could easily see a She-Hulk miniseries or a Hulk series or another Hulk solo film or a She-Hulk film. I could easily see that happening if Universal works well with Disney and Marvel, which I'm sure they will. I think they see the potential in how Sony's working with Marvel and making so much money off these Spider-Man movies that Universal could do the very same thing. And with Amy Pascal, who used to be at Sony and is now working at Universal, with that being said and that being known, that could easily pave the way for more Universal-based projects with Namor, Hulk, all those Hulk villains, all the assets that Universal has and hasn't been utilizing since they've owned them. You know, they had the Incredible Hulk solo film, which they distributed, but obviously the relationship wasn't well at the time with Disney and Marvel, so they didn't want to do that again. But they allowed Disney and Marvel to use Hulk in team-up movies and Avengers movies, and maybe some small cameos here and there, but that's about it. No solo-based film. So maybe after seeing Sony being very successful with Spider-Man and making all the right moves to make the most money, they finally woke up and said, you know what, we're going to start doing the same thing. We're going to share these assets. We're going to distribute these movies. Maybe we won't make the movies, but we'll actually make profit off of them and actually earn a lot of money like Sony's doing. So they could easily do that. Hopefully that's the route they're taking if this is true. But obviously with Namor, it's the same deal with Hulk. He's a Universal asset. There are rumors of Scott Derrickson putting Namor in Doctor Strange 2. There are rumors of him cameoing in Black Panther 2. So I do believe Namor is just around the corner. He was obviously teased all the way back in Iron Man 2 as there was a coordinate over the Atlantic, I believe, and it's obviously a reference to Namor. So very close to Wakanda, could be in Doctor Strange 2. Scott Derrickson's also working with the character, from what I believe from his recent tweets that he deleted. So a lot of teasers going around for Namor. I think he's going to be coming out at some point in Phase 4 and could be a major character or a recurring hero over the course of Phase 5, depending on if they make him an anti-hero or not. Not sure what approach they're going to go with Namor's characters as opposed to how the comics handled him recently. So we then have Deadpool. Once again, as I said earlier with X-Men and Fantastic Four, I think Deadpool and Fantastic Four are probably the very few assets that are very likely to appear in Phase 4 if they actually go through with using them. But obviously when it comes to X-Men, they might have to wait a little while. So Deadpool appearing in any movie honestly works because he's such a comedic character that he almost breaks continuity, breaks the fourth wall. That doesn't even matter in what movie he appears in. They could always make it work. Ryan Reynolds is obviously going to be very happy to work with the Disney and Marvel team with the MCU as opposed to working with Fox and going that direction. So obviously his return's inevitable. Deadpool 3 is definitely going to happen at some point, but I'm sure they're still in the process of writing a good way for him to enter the MCU and not completely destroy everything we know about Deadpool's character. So we then have Spider-Man Official, Sinister Six, and Spider-Woman. Once again, all up to Sony. Spider-Man 3 is definitely happening as confirmed by Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal, but when it comes to Sinister Six, I'm not sure if they're going to revamp the previously scrapped Sinister Six movie that Sony was working on. They could easily rework that in a way, keep a similar script, but use the MCU villains that have already been established. You have Vulture, Shocker, Mysterio, possibly Kraven the Hunter. I'm really assuming what they're going to do is essentially set up different Spider-Man villains over the next few solo Spider-Man movies, and then really have that pay off by bringing them all together in either a Spider-Man 5, a Spider-Man 6, or a crazy Sinister Six movie with just that group, with Spider-Man maybe appearing at some point in the movie to fight them, or doing whatever that may be. Maybe it'll be a Suicide Squad type of movie, we just don't know. But I do think it makes the most sense to set up all these solo villains in different Spider-Man solo movies and then bring them all together after you're comfortable with all those villains to where it really pays off, like the first Avengers movie did. But when it comes to Spider-Woman, I'm not sure how they could work that out right now, but I think Spider-Man 3 will definitely pave the way for a lot of spin-offs and big movies like that in the Spider-Man shared universe. So we'll just have to see what direction they take. Could be similar to Spider-Verse with the multiverse being established now. They could easily pull that off within the MCU. But last but not least, we have Masters of Evil, Deviants, and Celestials. I don't know much about Deviants, but put some images on screen of what that exactly looks like. We then have Celestials, which is obviously something that was teased back in Guardians 1, talked about a lot in Guardians 2, so I could really see a Celestials movie, or maybe even a short TV show where they kind of go in depth with exactly what the Celestials are, how the Infinity Stones were linked with them, and how all that really happened, which actually shaped the universe and the MCU we know today. So they could easily cover that in a TV show, maybe not even a movie, so I'm definitely game for learning the origins of the Infinity Stones and the various beings that essentially created the MCU we're watching right now in present day. So when it comes to Masters of Evil, that's probably something along the lines of Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers, if they adapt a similar storyline to that. So they could easily go in depth with a lot of the main villains that maybe haven't been around in a while. You have Zemo, you have Abomination, the Leader. So many villains we want to see a return of. They could easily make their return in a possible Masters of Evil or Thunderbolts project. But that's about it. This has been DK Dynamite. Sorry for the long video, but there's a lot to break down when it comes to every single one of these URLs on these apparent Facebook pages. Once again, take this all with a grain of salt. Somebody could have easily made these themselves to blend in with the official Facebook pages that do already exist for all the other MCU projects we've already seen, and for the MCU projects that are going to be coming out very shortly, like Black Widow, The Eternals, Shang-Chi. Maybe they're just blending in with the official ones, but eventually Marvel will come in, or Disney, they'll come in and actually take those URLs back and make them official for the actual movies. We'll just have to wait and see how they handle that. But once again, this could all be fake, or this could be legit, and we just have this massive slate of upcoming projects for both Phase 4 and Phase 5 films, for Disney Plus TV shows, for Hulu TV shows. We just don't know to what extent that these URLs are actually legit or not. So let me know what you think of all this down below. This has been DK Dynamite. Check all links down below in the description, and be sure to turn notifications on to stay up to date with latest and greatest Marvel news and information. And peace out, everyone.